Now, what does the future hold for BP, the oil giant? Here to tell us more is Robert Robotti of Robotti and Company. Robotti's firm focuses on undervalued securities, and he's been covering the energy sector since 1983. We also have John Licata. He is the chief investment strategist for Blue Phoenix and the editor of the Commodity Chronicles. Gentlemen, welcome to Bloomberg.
Thanks for having us.
Bob, let me come to you and begin by asking you, what's the fate of Tony Hayward as the chief executive of BP? Are his days numbered?
Well, I just think organizationally, there's no way that he's going to get out of this. BP clearly has a problem. That problem at one point, will be capped, and then issues dealing on a go-forward basis. But given yesterday the idea that he is the CEO, and therefore ultimately he is responsible for what did happen, and organizationally, I don't think any way BP can continue to run the company and hope that would be in the best interest of shareholders to continue to have the guy who's going to be personified as the villain, whether it's true or false, and whether it's accurate. But I think his days clearly, at some point when you've stayed the problem, there'll be somebody else to come in to run BP.
John Licata, what do you think about BP and the oil industry? Does this end up being the 3 Mile Island issue for the oil business?
Well, it's an interesting analogy you made earlier about the oil cano. I like that.
You like the oil cano? It's not mine. I can't claim credit for it. The oil cano. I'm going to ask you more about that concept in a second. But yes. So what about this whole idea that maybe this is that moment where everybody changes their opinion of the oil industry, including lawmakers as well as the industry itself?
Well, there's a tendency from the lawmaker perspective to overregulate. And I think we've seen that before within the commodities markets, whether we saw mining onshore or off, or now obviously with the deep water drilling. I mean, Exxon just recently purchased XTO Energy, and the whole reason they wanted to move away from oil was to focus on gas. And there's already been clamors of
domestic natural
gas, but there's been cause of, if there's horizontal drilling, could that possibly cause water impurifications? So here we are, we're talking about offshore drilling and the problems that can happen. There's actually, we can have problems onshore talking about oil and natural gas. So I do agree with Robert when it comes to Tony Hayward, and I do think his days are absolutely numbered. I think it was actually interesting that when President Obama spoke in front of the White House, it wasn't him who actually came forward. It was actually the chairman came to answer all the questions. So I do think his days are numbered.
Karl-Henrik Svanberg, the chairman of BP.
And I think the way he's actually presented himself to the public is not been from an act of sincere. He did not seem like he really wanted to be there yesterday, and for a lot of reasons I could see why. I mean, he's under the scrutiny of the nation. It's not even his country. But with that being said, I do think this could have been handled better. And as you mentioned, this is day 60, and we're still dealing with a problem that, through many of my contacts' eyes, this could continue to be a major problem through Labor Day.
Bob Robotti, when you talk about the actual sort of flow of oil that continues right now, is it possible that these relief wells that BP is drilling aren't going to solve the problem?
Well, you have 2 relief wells, right? So they do have redundancy in that case. Each of the relief wells should be able to stem the problem. So I think between the 2 of them, you've got very high probabilities. Clearly one of the things that comes away from this is there is no 100% certainty on anything. So to say that it's 100% certain that both the 2 relief wells in total would relieve the problem, you can't say that.
But I mean, as someone that knows about the energy business, I mean, they're drilling 5,000 feet, into the seabed floor. I mean, is there any more likelihood that those wells are going to work as opposed to the one that exploded?
I think there's a very high probability that at least one of those, that both of those wells will be able to stem the flow, and definitely the 2 of them together. I think that's a pretty high degree of certainty.
John Licata?
I mean, I think there's a high degree of certainty. I definitely agree with that, but it's a matter of timing. I mean, here we are right now. We already acknowledged we're doing day 60, but the fact of the matter is that one of the relief wells, still has not been in place. They've been concentrating on one, and I think the U.S. government kind of forced them to say, hey, look, one's not enough. We want 2 because we want this problem rectified once and for all. But again, I go back to what I said earlier. The fact of the matter is this might not be put in place until after Labor Day, and that still could be optimistic according to some viewpoints.
Well, you also have the hurricane season that is beginning.
Well, and that actually would throw a major monkey wrench into all this, because, I mean, heaven forbid that, we start to have a hurricane enter the Gulf region. I mean, you're talking about, all hands on deck are going to be all hands on land. And I think that's only going to prolong what we're seeing right now, and that probably be a worst-case scenario.
Bob, what are investors asking you about the oil industry right now?
Well, I guess clearly there's a concern in the short term, but obviously the real issue is what's the intermediate to long-term effects of this, and what impacts that have, and are there interesting investments to be had at this point, or is there significant risk still in everybody in the industry? Obviously, not just the participants in
all right, so no one has any specific answers right now.
I don't think they have specific answers. I do have some comfort on an intermediate to long-term basis. There's a solution and there's opportunities.